today, Guam. Guahusi Coleen Nicolas-Perez. I'm the Deputy Public Affairs Officer for Joint Region Marianas. We're here at the Latte of Freedom in Adelu, and with me is Mr. Tony Ramirez, who's the curator of the Guam Museum. Mr. Ramirez, thank you so much for joining us today.
This is also for inviting me.
Absolutely. We wanted to talk to you about lattes. So can you first tell us about what exactly does latte mean?
Latte is, comes from the word latte, which means scab. And like whenever your wound heals, a scab starts to form over it. And so besides meaning the house foundation, latte, there's also another Chamorro word called latte, which means to heal. And so the latte again is sort of like I would say a healing stone, and mainly to heal the wounds of the heart, because the ancient Chamorros used to bury their dead between the latte sets, and they would go through long periods of mourning. And in a lot of the historical accounts, it's a very traumatic period, And so after they bury their dead, after time goes by, eventually the wounds would heal, the wounds of the heart would heal, and the latte would form again over the wounds of the heart, and it would cause this healing process. And so I think that's where possibly the term latte is derived from.
Can you tell us a bit about what exactly make up the parts of the latte stone?
Yeah, the latte is composed of two parts. The haligi, which is the post, and the capstone that is referred to the tasa. I'm not too sure what the original Chamorro name for the capstone, because tasa is a Spanish word meaning cup, but it does have a hemispherical cup-like shape. And the latte again were made out of limestone and sometimes volcanic rock or sandstone, and they were arranged in parallel rows and double rows, and then anywhere from 4 to maybe even 7 sets within a row. And the principal houses again were built atop of the latte stone, the capstones, and then they would bury the dead in between the sets. And along the coastlines, the latte sets, the alignment would be parallel to the coastline, and so the dead will be buried with the feet facing the shoreline, and then the head facing inland. And you see it sometimes they'll have the hands covered over the pelvic area like that. But again, there's many different burial patterns, but again that seems to be the most common pattern. But there are also some of the dead are buried outside of the sets, but I believe that maybe the principal people within the clan probably are buried inside the sets,
And how do we know that? How do we know that they were buried right next to them and underneath the?
It's based on archaeological excavations, and sometimes when we, in a lot of the records and in a lot of our excavations, these are the patterns that we observe. And also, even from earlier archaeological work, such as Hans Hornbostel, who did work in the 20s and 30s, 1920s, 1930s. Again, he also observed that particular pattern. And it goes also for other islands in the Mariana archipelago.
What years were that the latte was predominant used?
It's estimated based on carbon dating that the latte period began possibly about 900 AD, and then last all the way to the arrival of the Europeans or the Spanish. And it probably ending about the time that San Torres came here, because pretty much after his arrival, he pretty much, upset the whole the cultural practices and everything, and war broke out, diseases again, decimating again large, parts of the indigenous population way back then. So that would be the ending of the latte period.
What type of tools were used, and how difficult was it to actually carve the latte stone?
Yeah, the stones again we usually carved into out of the various bedrock. Like for example here, this would be a sample of a bedrock, and so sometimes they would use fire, but they would also use tools such as a stone adze again to form the shape, But they would also use fire to kind of soften the rock, reduce the hardness of the rock so it can be easily shape, and then I guess they use different types of levers, but to extract the cornstones out of the bedrock quarries. And there's also a recent study by Dr. Gary Heathcote, which talks about the strength, the amazing strength of the ancient Chamorro men, and like all kinds of different types of muscular patterns, indicating that they were very powerful. But you could imagine people trying to lift these stones out and then trying to again erect the sets and so forth, and building the houses on top of them. It took a lot of strength and a lot of labor. But you have to remember there was a lot of communal labor involved. People cooperating with one another to help build and erect the sets.
What does the latte mean to us now?
I think it represents like strength, the resiliency of the people. It's endured, like the Chamorro people, to a lot of adversity. From war, earthquakes, all the typhoons. And they still persist again to this time. So I think that's also not only representative of the the ancient culture, but also the resiliency of the people. Because again, we still are here today, standing as tall and proud as that Latte stone.